Wonder Woman 767, Mariko Tamaki writing with Rafa Sandoval on the art. The next part in this Maxwell Lord story. And kind of a conclusion for now, surprisingly. I think this run keeps surprising us with how quickly it wraps up things that we think are going to lasting a while.
There are some examples of this where, like, I mean, this isn't actually, not comics specifically, but like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in TV, constantly surprised us with how quickly, it was such a pleasant surprise. It was, oh, nothing's dragged out. It's so quick. It's getting to the point. Whereas this, I'm kind of feeling a little bit like, no, could have done with some more time spending on some of this stuff. Like these were really strong elements I was really enjoying, and I feel like we're just rushing through them. We've got to hit the beats.
I think I like a lot of this issue, and I think the actual fight, if you want to call it that, between Wonder Woman and Max, where he's essentially using his mind powers to control her, because she walks in, she sees Liar, and I thought it was a bit weird. Not that Liar was acting out of character, but the scene felt kind of weird. So I was very pleased when it became clear that no, she's not really there. Max is just making her see Liar.
It was honestly, it was my first thought. I was like, "There's no way she's here. This has got to be Max."
And it becomes this kind of, because I think the scenes that I really like in here, he makes her commit essentially seppuku.
Yeah, he tells her to stab herself.
Yes, and to be fair, because I went back and checked after it's revealed what she did to sort of survive, and to be fair, it all works because it's
in a gorgeous silhouette.
Yeah, we never, from the angle we see it, her actually doing the classic, under the armpit. I mean, she does cut herself because it's a technicality. He says, stab yourself, and she does technically break skin, but she breaks it at the side of her, side, as opposed to, through the chest or whatever.
Yeah.
Big, great, full page spread of her getting back up. Why the ground is crumbling into rocks as she stands up, I'm not entirely sure. She's that angry that her footsteps are.
Yeah, I don't know on that one. Reasons,
but no, I like this idea of him like saying, you will bend to my will, you will do this, you will do that, and it's this, constant fight because he says, put your sword down, and the sword weighs, it becomes heavy.
Yeah,
and it falls down. She's trying to lift it up out the rock, and I get why the rock's crumbling at this point because the swords, hit it, and like this like sort of battling of wills. Like I love this idea, but how like the classic struggle of like. I can't really go to this example, but do you know in X-Men: The Last Stand when you got Iceman, and you've got Pyro, and they've got
that was not the example I was expecting.
You've got that classic, not a classic in the movie, but the classic example of the two opposing energy blasts hitting each other and it going back and forth, right in the middle.
For someone who would like a better example, that's better than that movie. Pete won't care as much. I mean, he probably likes it equally. But Harry Potter. They do that repeatedly between Harry and Voldemort.
Whatever. I don't watch Larry Potter. Okay. So, but I like the idea of that, but it's invisible, and that's essentially what this is. Where Max is trying to control her and she's trying to fight it, and it's this like struggle back and forth between them as she's coming for him. And I think that's actually done quite effectively. Where. And I think it is, but while it may be a bit over the top with like the ground crumbling at Wonder Woman's feet, which is basically in every single panel of her throughout this entire fight, I think it's actually maybe a little bit of artistic license in the sense that it's doing an effective job and making this feel like an epic fight, despite the fact they're essentially both just like standing still and maybe kneeling down here or there or. Do
you think there was like maybe recently an earthquake or something? Because when she hits Max eventually and he goes into the ground, he shatters the ground as well. I'm like, this is very weak concrete floor. I mean, Vertigo needs to invest in some better castles.
I mean, yes, that's fair. So she arrests him, and that's all that hunky dory. Interestingly, he does bring up, like, hey. We've seen things from the multiverse, and I saw you kill me. You killed me, and damn it, I'm going to deal with that. I'm going to get my revenge. I do kind of like that. I will say that reminds me that there was a lot of editor's notes in the first half of this. It went away after a while. Like by the time we got to the next snap flashback, and it said all the way back in Infinite Crisis. From that point on, they kind of disappeared. But there was like 5 editor's notes before that, which felt a bit.
I think
weird.
Like one of them was like, "Hey, last issue," and I'm like. Oh, okay. That probably doesn't need Like, you know, it was the one about
Overzealous.
Count Vertigo. I'm like, do we need one for last issue?
Just a bit overzealous, I think, on the editor's notes.
Yeah.
But the actual fight, I really like. I like the Infinite Crisis sort of coming into it as part of his motivations. Like him, the idea of him learning that is very interesting. It's a nice. I don't think it's an intentional callback, but it reminds me back in Justice League versus Suicide Squad when I got excited because Superman knew who Maxwell Lord is, and everyone else like didn't really know how seriously to treat him yet. And Superman's like, no, I know him, and it was this big sort of moment. I love the idea of it coming a little bit full circle here with now Max remembering things from that timeline that he has a grudge to pick with Wonder Woman, because of course he does, because she's the one who killed him. So that makes a lot of sense to me. I think the art is fairly solid, but honestly, my only real complaint that bothered me throughout is that sometimes the lasso, like on her belt's not the right word, but when it's hanging from her,
just on a hip.
Yeah. Sometimes it was drawn in a way where it looked like it was more like a cloth, because like all the strands just kind of were solid together, and it's not a big deal, but it's something that I noticed a couple of times. And
I've got like I'm finding Sandoval is very hit or miss for me. It seems I thought it was just Flash where I didn't really like him, but I found he has a similar problem on this as well, where every so often like people will just look weirdly chunky, like in a panel here or there. Like it's not as consistent as like his Barry Allen was. Don't get me wrong, but there are points where like all of a sudden like Diana has a really fat face out of nowhere, for example. But it's consistent with all the characters that it's like this, and I don't know. It's just something that I'm finding I don't enjoy that much, even though I thought I liked Sandoval, and it was just his Flash that I didn't enjoy. It's not terrible. I'm a little disappointed that we are having another artist on this arc. Like it's a 2-issue thing here that we essentially with the last issue with Vertigo, and we couldn't have had the same artist for 2 issues.
Nope, no consistency for you.
No.
We're just not allowed. I mean, they are. I mean, Sandoval's not like my favorite artist by any means, but I do think there's some great pages in here, some great panels, some great moments. They're not all up to the same standard, and I think that's a fair point. But I mean, for the most part, I was pretty happy with it.
It's not bad. Like I say there are some great moments. It's just a bit inconsistent. I think is my problem. Like the silhouette stabbing, and then her lying on the floor with Max at the throne, I think is one of the best pages in the issue. I think that looks fantastic. So it's definitely not all bad.
Yeah, the ending is kind of interesting, I guess, where Wonder Woman's just sort of, relaxing a bit because she's been through an ordeal. And it is like, no, take a day off. You can save the world tomorrow. You've had a rough time. But Max is taken to prison. He's got a big neck collar on that's like blocking his powers, as you'd expect.
Usual, yeah.
Yes. But he gets stabbed in his cell by Liar, who's in there waiting for him. And it's just setting up that Liar is going to be, I assume, prominent in the story next couple of issues.
Well, I mean, it does say next Liar returns, so it seems a reasonable assumption.
So we'll have to see. I'll have to see what they do with Liar on her own terms, away from her father, because so far she showed up. She was trying to do this for her dad, and now with him being locked up and her, given that she stabs him and says "Long live the king" or not, he would certainly imply that she's going solo and going her own way. So we'll see how.
I hope this wasn't a fatal stabbing, because that would be really disappointing to have just
I doubt
lost Max Lord like that.
I highly doubt it. I wouldn't even. This is not that you're.
No, I know this is comic.
Not that you're acting the same way, but assuming that Max was actually dead here would be a lot like Matt thinking Superboy was dead in that issue of Action Comics that he freaked out about.
Yeah, see, this is the thing. I don't think he actually is. I'm pretty sure he's not. But they go out of this way to look pretty dead, and the dialogue, like "Long live the king" or not, is very clearly implying that he's dead here. There's an implication, at least, which is more than it seemed like with Matt's situation. But I'm sure they'll rush him into treatment and they'll save his life somehow. He's not quite dead. The usual.
She doesn't check a pulse. She's just hoping he's dead. She's being egotistical. Has she stabbed anyone before? I don't know. Maybe not. But
I want to know: does she have a good motivation here for patricide, or is it just for the hell of it?
I will find out next issue, I suppose, if we get a bit more context for it.
And she's got some fancy light armor.
Yes. The blade itself also looks like it may be magical, just because it's got a sort of, sort of sleek handle with a design on it. Might not be, but.
And so I was like, "What's your basis for this?" I mean, it's a nicely carved handle. Like,
Well,
it didn't seem that.
I'm going alongside with the magical armor. Just it feels like maybe it's a.
I mean, it might be. There's not enough for me to say though. Definitely not. But it didn't stand out as magical to me, especially next to the mystical light armor, which seems to be pretty, translucent. It's quite a nice design for that. I do like that.
I don't know. It looks like the magical knife in Demon Souls. Maybe that's why I'm thinking that. I've been playing too much video games.
Well, I mean, fair enough. I can't comment on that one.
But yes, it was alright. But I like this issue more than the last one. I will say it doesn't feel like the run so far is necessarily living up to the heights that Mariko Tamaki can soar to. I think her X-23 is better than this, but it's still relatively early days yet.
I feel like so far all the beats I've liked, like all the major beats, they're not hitting the execution. They're not hitting the timing of these beats. Perhaps, like I'm saying, I feel like, hey, Liar Liar has only been gone for like 4 issues, and then okay, we're back. I'm like, okay, that feels really soon. Max Lord was only really around for 1 proper arc. It's like, okay, this feels like it's over quite quickly, but I like the core beats that it is doing at the start and end of all these stories. I feel like there's not enough time for them.
It's one of those things though where every single issue is very easy and enjoyable to read. So there's definitely something to be said for that. But
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. What are you giving it?
I'm just gonna give this a straight 7.
Yeah. I'll probably go a nudge up. I'll say 7.5. I'll even have to go with the 8. I really like the battle of sort of the mind battle that happens
nice.
as he's trying to control her and she's kind of fighting back. Like I actually really like that, and that's a good. I'd probably say it's like a half the issue in the middle of it.
It's at least a third, yeah.
So really, really good stuff with that. So yeah.